Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Mikołaj Lauer, one of XTM experts. Today I will be presenting a webinar to you, which is entitled XTM Connect Series Sitecore, where we are going to show you the latest version of our connector, which is version 3.2. We have added quite a lot of different improvements, which I would like to share with you. And for those of you who already know the Sitecore connector, and it's going to be, I hope, a very fascinating journey. And for those of you who haven't seen it, you will see all the features in action, those features which I believe are most important from the point of view of localizing the content in Sitecore. And so let me just go briefly through the agenda today. I would like to show you how we redesigned completely the settings for easier configuration. And now it's possible to use XTM UI, which is now consistent with other connectors. Also, it's possible to detect a change by the system automatically, and then the project can be updated in XTM also automatically. So you don't need to resend it. There is only one condition: the project has to be active in XTM. I will also show you how you can use or make the best use of advanced filter and search options in the translation queue. We no longer call it translation in progress in Sitecore. Now it's called translation queue. And then also it's possible to change the due dates. We can also do it at the project and job level in Sitecore in translation queue, and it's going to be available in XTM. So you can update your due dates. If you are a Sitecore, let's say admin or a content author who sends something for translation, and then you want to, let's say, change the due date for your project, you can do it, and then it's going to be reflected in XTM. I would like to remind you all that you are on mute. However, you can ask questions and during the webinar and in the questions panel or in the questions box in the GoToWebinar panel. So without further ado, I'd like to go to Sitecore first and obviously show you XTM and XTM features and related to working in XTM Workbench, and managing the project coming from Sitecore. So let me just go to Sitecore for now. This is the Sitecore view. And as part of the Sitecore connector, you can see we have an XTM tab, call it a ribbon here on the left. And what we have done recently with version 3.2, we have added the settings tab, and we also changed translation in progress to translation queue, which is now consistent with other elements of the UI we have for other connectors. Maybe that's before I go and create a project. First of all, I would like to show you the settings. And some of you are, I guess it's going to be already known. For some of you, it's going to be new. However, it's a big change compared to what we had, because now the user can set the specific settings in XTM, configure it in Sitecore, excuse me, in a much easier fashion. And then you have to be the XTM admin to be able to change settings in the system here. So this would require some additional help support from the XTM admin, especially when it comes to that XTM Cloud settings part. But you can see we also have a separate one, which is Sitecore settings. Okay, so those of you who know the connector, maybe you already recall that we had settings on the left and here, and at the bottom. Maybe I can even show it to you. It was probably more difficult to see them and get there, and also understand the exact details. So we made it simpler, and now, as I said, we go to settings. Now the system is automatically connected with XTM. Sitecore itself is connected. As you can see, it's connected to XTM Cloud. If I click it just to double check, it doesn't give any error. And obviously, you would have to only remember about putting the cloud URL. I'm using the specific server for my demo purposes, but no matter whether you use XTM Cloud or maybe whether you use your private cloud, because sometimes our customers, of course, they have their own service as well. And you just have to put the URL, and you don't even have to put the web service URL, which was the case for the previous version of the connector. So now it's much easier, as I said. And all you need to do is to put the company name So this is your account name from XTM, a specific user. So that user would be used to connect, because we need to have the password of that user, which is masked here. And other details follow as well. So here you can select a specific customer, and this is your customer and ID. So in XTM you can have different customers, as you know, internal customers, external customers, and which represent different types of content. Sitecore can be one of them. Sometimes, obviously, Sitecore is part of marketing activities, so you can call it this customer remarketing if you want. And that ID has to be mapped with XTM. So I'm just referring here to that customer list. And as you can see here, Sitecore has this number, 6, 7, and 66, and it was entered here. So then the system will know that the project should be created under this customer. It can be changed easily, but it can also be done. You can use a default project template, and this is the template that you have in XTM. You can see we have many different templates. We can select them here, so you can easily change it. And also other elements like your default source language. I'm just using EN. Obviously, it can be any flavor. In my presentation, I'm using English neutral. Obviously, it can be English UK or GB, English US, and any other flavors or variants of English. And you can also set the project prefix, and so demo in this case. And we can also put the information about the project import. So this is one of the options that also was improved, one of the things that were improved. Right now, we can import content automatically without having to do it manually by clicking import in the translation queue. In the past, it was translation progress. However, we can obviously, we don't want to do it. We can obviously skip this option, but I think it's much easier to simply import content automatically when the whole project is finished, or maybe when the single job is finished. A quick differentiation between job and project. Let's imagine you have a file in Sitecore, some item, which is an XML file, and you send this file, you send a couple of files, like 10 or 15 files, and into 3 languages, let's say. So as soon as one XML file is translated in a given language, then it's going to be sent back. So this is what the import does, and that selection does. Once the whole project is finished, once a single job is finished. So whole project means that I have to finish the entire project. All the files have to be finished in XTM in the projects, right? And only after that, once it shows finished, like here, then only after that action is done, you will be able to import the entire content. Actually, the system will do it for you. And we need the automatic import URL to this end, right? So this is our main main domain for Sitecore, which is this one, this part here. Yeah, and some other elements which are related to the project analysis status. Not that important for now. And language mapping. No, language mapping is not required, right? In XTM, as long as you have the connection established, you select languages in XTM project template, for example, then you can just use your standard Sitecore languages to map to in the same way and as you would use them in XTM. So no language mapping is required. Just briefly, let's go through Sitecore settings. These are the base Sitecore URL. That part doesn't change. Obviously, it's now shown in a different UI. As I said before, it was shown here on the left in that tree. And you can also select fields to exclude. And it was also visible on the left. Now it's visible here in the main central UI. And so that you can exclude specific fields when it comes to the types. And you can also, so you can see here, we selected some fields like checkbox, checklist, date, and so on and so forth. And if you scroll down, here we also have an option of setting different workflow settings. So I'm talking about workflows in Sitecore right now. We have quite a sophisticated way of handling workflows in Sitecore, which, for example, are related to the content approval, to publishing, and you can simply set specific, let's say, options or behavior methods when it comes to what should happen for content in translation. and what should happen for content which is already imported. So you can use initial state from existing workflow, and you can use different options like workflow step for content in translation. You can use workflow state from the workflow marked as in translation, the XTM connector node, different options, and also the same for imported content. And then if you scroll down a bit, you can see we have also quite a sophisticated granular setting when it comes to related content. So, for example, for those those of you who are admins in Sitecore, you know how many, let's say, hierarchy levels you have, and what is for sub items maybe, or also for related content, and you can specify how deep, so to say, XTM connector should go when it comes to grabbing content for translation, right? Especially when you have a sophisticated site and the tree is quite extended. Here is it's actually a default setting. You can change some of these things still when you create a project. So you can include components and their sub items in the specific project which you create, and that part is very important. So the new feature which was added, apart from the new UI, as I said, so we can detect changes, and no longer you can do it, you can also decide from which version you want to take those changes or detect those changes. You have three options: latest modified version, a latest version, right? And also same as send. So there are three options. I'm now going through latest modified version here, so this is something I wanted to show you later. And you can also detect changes for a specific workflow state. So, for example, sometimes customers have workflows in Sitecore which say in translation, draft, published, right? So you can also decide from which version the changes should be detected. So, for example, if you don't want the changes to be detected from the status which is already approved, which is quite logical, right? Then you don't want it to be sent to XTM, especially when the project is potentially almost done. Then you shouldn't be able to actually detect those changes from something which is already approved. And it's obviously in this case very important. We are talking about the detection of changes in the source version, right? That's why it's highly possible that you can still have some content in translation in XTM, let's say from English to German or any other language, target language, and then someone makes a change. And let's say, depending on the specific workflow, inside, we call it workflow state, inside the Sitecore, and you can detect the change or not, right? So that's why you have to specify that XTM connector should detect changes only for a specific workflow step. If you exclude approved step, right, then the changes will not be will not be detected from approved state. But if you have a draft state and you want to detect some changes which are in draft still, you can do it here. So it's virtually difficult for me to enumerate all the possible options you may have, but I just gave you some examples. So I think that's it when it comes to the settings themselves and cloud settings. So Sitecore and cloud settings. As I said, we made the UI more consistent with our other connectors, and it should be easier to use and configure. Sitecore itself, Sitecore connector itself. But also, when it comes to translation queue, I mentioned we changed the name. It's not translation in progress anymore. It's now translation queue. And there are a number of different improvements which we have. For example, filtering option, right? So when you click filter, now it's possible to filter for many different types of fields, especially when you have hundreds, maybe thousands of items that you send every day or every month. Then you can still filter for them easily. You can look for dates, and you can look for different date ranges. You can look for the due date. You can look for the specific source and target languages, or maybe the step, which is obviously a workflow step in XTM in this case, and also the status for the projects which were cancelled, finished, in progress, or maybe new. And you can also check the progress. So if I, for example, want to see only the let's say the projects which the projects which don't have any progress, I would have to go to 0, right? And then I can apply the filters. And then what's also important is that if you have a request step, because it's possible to also in XTM to put the information about the requester who logged in to Sitecore as a user. That requester, by the way, can also be mapped with the field in XTM. So the project managers who receive the jobs from Sitecore can see the requesters' names. And it's also possible to simply, even if they have to contact them, they can, or ask for some details, they can still easily find that person, right? So that's the search one, and or the filter, I would say. And then you can apply the filter or reset the search. And so we can apply it. And you can also see we also have a new item, which is export button. We can export the existing project to Excel if you want to keep track of it, or maybe you want to simply have a history of your projects somewhere else, or maybe you want to share it with someone who doesn't have access to Sitecore. It can be easily done. And also you can select which items you want to export, but you can also, if you don't select anything, then you will be able to export everything. So that's the option. And if you select specific, let's say, projects which you have in here, no matter what their status is, you can also apply different actions, right? So I showed you that we have the automatic import. So the import option here is not really applicable, but if you had manual import potentially set up, you could do it together. So you could do it for all projects at once. You wouldn't have to go to those three dots and import them individually. You can also remove or update the projects if needed. Okay. The update of the project will be shown later. There will be a specific tooltip which will appear here on the right, something I'm going to show you later. Okay. Without further ado, I have created a simple website and in XTM for demo purposes. Obviously, there will be some, I guess you obviously have more sophisticated, majority of you have more sophisticated, let's say, sites, something I wanted to send to XTM. And it's an English version, and it has two versions right now, right? So 1 and 2. The second one was modified quite recently, and it has some specific content, some title, and I would like to send it to XTM. In order to do that, you have to go to, first of all, obviously you have to select an item, it's in English, and I have to click to add to queue. Now what's happening is now that XTM is, the connector is connecting with XTM. So now the source language was already, as you can see, mapped, not mapped, but shown as it's shown in that XTM template, standard workflow, which we have in XTM in the settings. And what I can do, let's say I would like to send this project to Japanese and German. I can have two languages, so maybe just Japanese. And here you can also take a decision whether at this stage you want to add this project to the existing translation or to the existing project, right? So you can simply update the existing project, even if it has some other content, with some new content. In this case, it's my demo Mikołaj item. You can then obviously put a specific name. So let's just say it's a demo and then webinar, and the due date can be put. Let's put some due dates for a specific time. And then we can also have this option, which I was just explaining, when it comes to the levels, different hierarchy levels, and also the items which you can select. So we have a couple of options to show. Select sub-items. As you can see, this is a very simple item, doesn't have any sub-items, but then you can select different items which would be here. And it's also possible to send related content. So you can include components and their sub-items. You can also include items that refer to the selected item, so the one that you have here. Then you can also submit parent pages and their chart pages. So in the same source file. So you don't create not duplicate, but you don't create multiple files and English files. So you just send one. And this one is quite important for the preview to work properly. So copy final layout settings from source language version to all language versions. So let's apply this standard workflow. Let's apply the source and target language, and let's send it for translation. So I just click this button, send for translation. As you probably could see, there was also another button which said add to queue. The purpose of it is that you can add more items for translation, and they can simply accumulate there, and now you can send those items later. Right now, we only send one item. And so the project should be already created in XTM. So the XTM as a translation management system has now created a project. It's called Demo Webinar. This is my language combination. It's from English to Japanese, as we said. The time due is also set, 3 o'clock, and in the morning, unfortunately. And then it's 17th of May. If I go to the details of this project, and you should see that we now have a specific project template that we selected. We selected it from here, from XTM, from Sitecore. We also have a specific language. And if I go to the workflow, we have two predefined workflow steps. Now, it's as I said, it's a very small and simple item. Those steps can be already pre-assigned, right? And with specific users. Those users can be simply set in the project template. If you want to speed up things, you could do it this way. And then in order to start this project, you would have to click Save and Start, but it's also possible to automate it in the project template, which I'm going to show you later. And right now the project is started. Let's see what is happening in the translation queue. I just went to Sitecore. In progress, 50%. Why only 50%? Simply because, and we applied machine translation, simply because it's the translation, let's say, step was finished, and all the free segments were completed using machine translation. However, we haven't finalized the second step yet. That's why it's showing 50%. So you can always have a bird's eye overview on what is happening, or what is happening with your project once you send it from Sitecore. If I now go to XTM Workbench, let's open it in the normal mode first. Here you will see we have the machine translation applied. These are the matches which will obviously in a normal life, real life would have to be, post-edited in the second step. And I can also show you briefly the so-called visual mode, as we call it. It's a very simple mode, but obviously you can have more sophisticated and modes, visual modes with all the specific images that should be visible, logos and what have you. So that will give the users a better option or better visibility of the entire context, especially when it comes to the complex sites, and they don't have to go to XTM, to Sitecore, and they can see all the preview in XTM Workbench. So once the translation is done in XTM Workbench, what I can do right now, I can simply finish it, but I don't want to finish it yet because I would like to show you how you can update the project which is still in translation and inside XTM, and I would like to simply make a change to that content. So in order to do that, obviously I would have to go to Show Editor, and I would like to simply change something. So let's just change one word. So that drives global improvements. And you may remember in the settings we have last modified version selected for the change detection. So let's just see what happens. If I click Accept and then Save, I should be able now, if I go to my translation queue, I should see some additional tooltip which should appear for this project. And if I hover over it, you can see change detected, right? Change is detected. So this is my demo. This is my webinar project. The change was detected. If I click it, then I should see a couple of options, right? So the most frequently used one, because that's the purpose of it, automatic change detection happened. And now I would like to update the existing project in XTM. So that's what I'm going to do, update existing. But not only that, I can also send it as a new content. So new meaning that I will send it as a new project. Sometimes there may be a use case for it. You can also ignore the content update. We don't want to ignore it. We don't want to send it as new. We want to send that content to update the existing one, okay? So if I update the existing content, now what's happening, and I just clicked it, it's now creating that additional content really by adding that to the existing project. So it should be done right now. So we just changed one word, as you may recall. I can now go to projects, and then let's just refresh it and click all. Let's go to the project workflow, and then in a second I think I should see some changes. They were not yet sent. Let me double check. Update existing. Let's just do it again. Okay. So I have to refresh my view. Okay, let's go back. Yeah, and then I have to go here. Obviously, the number of segments didn't change. I only changed one word. As you can see, improvements is now here. At the beginning, we had growth. So improvement was changed. So we added improvements, replaced growth with improvements. Obviously, in this case, we applied machine translation. The data was immediately modified and translated. And in this change, when this change happened in English, based on the setting, just to remind you in the settings to always detect the change in the last modified version, we actually were able to automatically detect the change and send it to XTM. Okay. So now what I can do, I can finish this this file in XTM. I can now even close the second step. And what happens is that when I finish this project, normally obviously correction or post editing would happen, right? And right now it's finished. So if I now go to translation queue and I refresh this list, this project should disappear from the list because we already finished it. And indeed, demo webinar project doesn't exist here anymore. So what I should do now, I should go to the original item, and now it's in English. I should now look for the Japanese version, and we have one version. It says translated now from English, and that's my translation. And obviously that translation also includes the content with the last detected change, and sorry, with the change detected from the last modified version. And just to remind you what we had in the actual and the settings. So in the Sitecore settings, when we scroll down, we had the option of always detecting the change from the latest modified version, but it's also possible to take a latest version, so no matter whether it was modified or not, and then same as send. So we have two options, and the language versions also are visible here always, right? So obviously we see that we have one Japanese version, right? But if I were to go and switch back to English, just this one, you can see we have two versions, right? Because we modified, and at 4:24 my local time CET, we modified the English version. We added one additional word, actually replaced one word with another, and the change was detected. So this should be considered, and I think it will be considered by the majority of users as a very effective, a very useful improvement when it comes to how the connector operates itself. Okay, I think that we just reached the end of the demo part. I'd be very interested to know what your thoughts are. If you maybe can ask your questions in the questions panel, and I will be happy to answer them. I don't see any questions, and today I hope that that you found this webinar informative. So I would be happy to answer any potential questions that you may have. You can send them, and after the demo, after the webinar, to our email. It's called experts@xtm.cloud. So a team of experts will be happy to assist you with any potential queries you may have related to the connector and to what you just saw when it comes to the new features of the Sitecore connector. I would like to thank you very much for your time and patience, and see you in our next webinar. Thank you very much, and goodbye.